Where's the shooter? Lieutenant Jack Reynolds' voice cracked through the comm system as another round split the humid Colombian air, dropping his point man behind a fallen log. Four operators down in less than 10 minutes. The SEAL team was pinned, extraction routes severed by invisible death that came without warning, without mercy. Reynolds pressed his back against a moss-covered tree, the bark splintering inches from his head as another round found its mark. Sweat stung his eyes as he desperately scanned the dense foliage. 20 years of combat experience across the three continents, and now he was about to die in this god-forsaken jungle, unable to even locate the enemy. "Someone give me a position!" His voice rose to near panic, something he'd sworn would never happen to him. Not after Afghanistan, not after watching his men die while he survived. Somewhere 50 meters behind them, Sarah Collins pressed herself deeper into the mud. Her interpreter's uniform was soaked with sweat and Colombian rain as her fingers found the familiar contours of the Remington 700 concealed in her pack. The rifle she'd kept hidden for 2 weeks of pure hell. 2 weeks of watching these SEALs mock her, abuse her, lock her in shipping containers under the scorching sun. 2 weeks of gathering intelligence while playing the role of weak, forgettable woman. 2 weeks of waiting for the moment that had finally arrived. Every instinct screamed to let them suffer longer, to let them feel the same helplessness they'd inflicted on her. But David's face flashed in her mind. Her fiancé, somewhere in these jungles, counting on her. In 30 seconds, the team would be combat ineffective. In 60, they'd all be dead. Sarah made her choice. The C-130 touched down at the forward operating base carved from Colombian jungle, its cargo ramp lowering to reveal SEAL Team 5 in all their alpha male glory. Sarah Collins watched from the tarmac as they strutted down like conquering heroes, muscles rippling under tight t-shirts, tribal tattoos on display. She'd seen their type before, elite warriors who confused physical strength with true power. "Who's the chick?" Petty Officer Chris Wilson asked loudly, his eyes sweeping dismissively over her 5'6" frame, taking in her simple tactical pants and oversized jacket that hid her athletic build. "Specialist Collins," Colonel Bradford answered from behind her. "CIA requested an interpreter who knows the local dialects. She'll be attached to your unit for the duration." Lieutenant Reynolds turned then, all 6'3" of him, built like a linebacker with arms thick as tree trunks. His blue eyes narrowed as he looked her up and down. "I don't babysit Barbies in combat zones, Colonel. This is a high-risk operation, not a language exchange program." "The decision's been made, Lieutenant." Bradford's tone suggested he enjoyed Reynolds' hostility. "Collins goes where you go." As the team dispersed to their quarters, Sarah noticed an older man watching from the shadows of the command post. Unlike the others, his gaze wasn't dismissive, but evaluative, calculating. She filed the observation away, as she had been trained to do. The real mission had begun. Thrusting his arthritic hands into his pockets, William Old Bill Harrington watched the petite woman walk across the tarmac. Something about her gait, the way her eyes scanned everything while appearing to look at nothing. It triggered memories from another jungle, another war, 4 decades earlier. In his quarters that night, he pulled out a worn file folder marked Classified Nicaragua, 1987, from the false bottom of his footlocker. Inside was a grainy photograph, half burned, showing a shadowy figure in a ghillie suit. The notation at the bottom was simple: Ghost Hunter, 117 confirmed. Old Bill ran his weathered thumb over the image. He'd been a young sergeant then, leading his first special operations team against Soviet-backed Sandinistas. The mission had gone sideways. His team ambushed using tactics no guerrilla fighter should have known. They were minutes from being overrun when it happened. 5 enemy snipers eliminated in 40 seconds. Shots that defied physics and reason. The Ghost Hunter had saved them all, then vanished like morning mist. They never learned who it was, man or woman, American, or ally. Just a shadow that brought death with surgical precision. Impossible, Bill muttered to himself, closing the file. But his instincts, honed through 50 years of warfare, nagged at him. The way Collins moved, the awareness behind her eyes, it was too familiar. He'd watch her closely, because if he was right, these cocky SEALs had no idea what kind of predator walked among them. Day 3 escalated the harassment. Sarah found her gear bag dumped in the mud outside the barracks, her expensive camera equipment ruined. The camera she ostensibly used to document local customs, but actually contained components of her disassembled rifle. "Accidents happen," Reynolds said with a shrug when she reported it. "Maybe keep your stuff somewhere safer. Like back at Langley, where you belong." She played the role perfectly, eyes downcast, voice soft, the picture of a woman intimidated by aggressive alpha males. Inside, she cataloged every insult, every slight, building her cover while observing patterns and relationships within the base. That night, while retrieving parts of her scattered equipment, she noticed Old Bill watching her from the shadows of the mess hall. Their eyes met briefly. He nodded once, then disappeared inside. The container incident happened on day 5. Marcus Bull Thompson, 6'5" of muscle and meanness, shoved her inside the metal box that had been sitting in the midday sun for hours. "Time to toughen up the princess," he laughed, sliding the bolt home. "Few hours in the heat, you'll either get stronger or realize you should go home." The temperature inside climbed past 120 degrees within minutes. For 6 hours, Sarah used breathing techniques learned during SERE training to slow her heart rate, conserve oxygen, manage the crushing heat. She counted seconds, minutes, hours, mentally reviewing the intelligence she'd gathered. David had been in a place like this, she reminded herself. Maybe worse. The thought of her fiancé, captured because someone had betrayed his entire network, gave her strength. When they finally let her out, she stumbled, playing up the weakness they expected to see. Only Diego Ramirez, the team's quiet scout, showed a flicker of concern, offering a water bottle while Wilson and Thompson watched disappointedly. Reynolds hadn't even been there, the heat torture apparently beneath his personal attention. Old Bill found her at 0200, practicing alone in the base's small gym. She moved through combat forms with fluid precision that belied her supposed background, not CIA standard training. Something far more specialized. "Interesting technique," he said from the doorway, intentionally making noise to announce his presence. "Reminds me of something I saw a long time ago. Nicaragua, 1987. Sarah froze momentarily, then continued her routine, shifting to more basic movements. "Just something I picked up from a boyfriend once." Must have been quite a boyfriend. Bill stepped into the gym, closing the door behind him. "Because what you were doing is a combat form developed by Soviet Spetsnaz, later adapted by a very specific U.S. unit during the Cold War." She stopped, assessing him with new eyes. "You've got quite an imagination, Sergeant Major." "Retired," he corrected, "though they keep me around to train snipers. Something about experience being valuable." He paused. "Ghost Hunter." The name hung between them like a live grenade. Sarah's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do." He moved to a bench, easing his arthritic frame down. "I was there, you know, Nicaragua, when the original Ghost Hunter saved my entire team. Never saw a face, just the aftermath. 5 impossible shots that the best snipers in the world couldn't make." He pulled out a tattered photograph, himself 40 years younger, standing with a squad of exhausted operators. The Ghost Hunter had 117 confirmed kills by 1988, then disappeared into the shadows. The program officially never existed. Sarah said nothing. "You're not the original," he continued. "Too young, but you move the same way, have the same awareness, Same training. He leaned forward. Daughter? The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken history. What do you want? She finally asked. Voice unchanged, but posture now unmistakably that of a predator. The truth. Because whatever game you're playing with Reynolds and his team, it's dangerous. And I've buried enough good operators in my lifetime. Sarah studied him for a long moment, then made her decision. My father was the original ghost hunter. He trained me from childhood after my mother died. I'm ISA now, Intelligence Support Activity. Officially, I don't exist. And unofficially, I'm hunting the man who captured my fiancée and 11 other CIA officers. Her eyes hardened. A man inside this base betrayed them to Vladimir Volkov, former KGB, now running a private military force trafficking in narco-terrorism. Bradford? That's my suspicion. David's last message warned me about him specifically. Old Bill absorbed this. These are dangerous accusations. This is a dangerous game. She stepped closer. Are you going to expose me? He laughed, a dry sound like autumn leaves. To whom? Those SEAL boys who couldn't spot a timber rattler if it was coiled around their boots? He shook his head. No, I'm going to help you. Why? Because I owe a debt to the ghost hunter, and because at my age there aren't many chances left to make a difference. Sarah nodded once. Then we should begin. Day 12 brought the incident in the combatives' room. Reynolds demonstrating holds and throws on various team members, his movements precise and controlled. When he called Sarah onto the mat, she knew what was coming. Let's see if the princess can handle herself, he announced to the gathered crowd. Without warning, he grabbed her collar and flipped her onto her back, driving the air from her lungs. As she struggled to breathe, he leaned close. This is what happens in the real world, Collins. Bad men don't care that you're small or weak or female. They'll hurt you just for fun. He transitioned to an armbar, applying pressure just short of injury. You feel that. That's your weakness. That's why you don't belong here. The team watched, some uncomfortable, but none intervening, pack dynamics at their worst. When he finally released her, she curled into a ball, hiding her face not from pain. She'd endured far worse, but to conceal the rage burning in her eyes. In 3 moves, she could have had him unconscious. In 5, dead. Later that night, Old Bill found her disassembling and cleaning her hidden rifle components. Reynolds crossed a line today, he noted. He's an arrogant bully leading a team of followers, she replied, hands moving with practiced efficiency. But he's not my target. You think Bradford is using them? Sending them into a trap? I know he is. The operation they're planning, it's textbook Volkov. Same pattern he used in Chechnya and Syria. The SEALs will be ambushed, captured, or killed. Bradford gets plausible deniability, and Volkov gets more bargaining chips. Old Bill's expression darkened. When? Soon? They've been preparing equipment for a night operation. My guess is within 48 hours. And you'll let it happen? Sarah's hands stilled on her rifle. No, but I need to be ready. Day 14 brought the breaking point. Sarah overheard radio chatter suggesting the location of the captured CIA officers. She'd made the mistake of being too eager, too obvious in her interest. Spying on classified communications, Collins? Reynolds' voice had been dangerously quiet. That's a court-martial offense. I wasn't. Thompson, Wilson, escort our translator to containment. Seems she needs another lesson in operational security. This time had been worse. They'd chosen the smaller container, the one that had been sitting in direct sunlight since dawn. The metal had been hot enough to burn skin on contact. As they shoved her inside, Wilson laughed. Maybe this time you'll learn your place. 6 hours, 360 minutes, 21,600 seconds. She'd counted everyone, using meditation techniques to lower her core temperature, to separate her mind from the crushing heat that climbed past 130 degrees Celsius. When she'd been released, she'd collapsed genuinely this time. The heat exhaustion had been real, dangerous. Ramirez had been there again, helping her to the medical tent. "This is going too far," he'd muttered, but not loud enough for others to hear. While she recovered, Old Bill brought news. "They're moving tonight, Aero 200 hours. Night insertion, targeting a compound 30 clicks south of here. Reynolds thinks it's a FARC splinter group. It's not. It's Volkov's forward operating base. I need to follow them." "You can barely stand." "I'll manage." She forced herself upright. "Help me prepare." The SEALs departed at exactly 200, moving silently into the jungle darkness. They hadn't bothered to inform Sarah of the operation, of course, exactly as planned. 30 minutes later, she slipped through a gap in the perimeter she'd identified weeks earlier. Old Bill was waiting with a ghillie suit modified for the Colombian environment in a weapon case. "Thermal optic," he said, handing her the advanced scope. "FLIR Thermosight Pro. Military-grade target acquisition at 1,200 meters through dense foliage. Cost more than my truck." "Thank you." She mounted it on her assembled Remington 700, the weight familiar and reassuring. "They've got a 45-minute head start. Moving on this bearing." He handed her a compass. "I'll monitor comms from here. Volkov's men will be using the old KGB ambush pattern. Multiple shooters in elevated positions, interlocking fields of fire." "I know. My father taught me all of Volkov's tactics. He studied him for years." Old Bill nodded. "Be careful out there. Ghost hunter." "Always." She melted into the darkness, becoming one with the jungle. She caught up with the SEALs 3 kilometers out, paralleling their movement through the dense foliage. They were good, moving quietly, maintaining proper intervals, checking their sectors, but they had no idea what awaited them. 2 hours into their patrol, she spotted the first sign of the ambush, a subtle displacement of vegetation 800 meters ahead. Thermal imaging confirmed a sniper nest occupied by a shooter using Soviet-era tactics, precisely where Volkov would place him. Sarah counted 5 sniper positions total, perfectly arranged to create a killing zone. The SEALs were walking straight into it, unaware and unprepared. She could warn them, should warn them perhaps. But the moment she revealed herself, her cover would be blown, her mission potentially compromised. David and the others might be lost forever. The decision was made for her when the first shot rang out. A SEAL dropped, clutching his shoulder. Then another fell, and another. Reynolds' panicked voice crackled through the comm unit she'd borrowed from Old Bill. "Where's the shooter? Someone give me a position!" The team was pinned down, 4 operators wounded in 10 minutes. Their extraction route cut off. In 30 seconds, they would be combat ineffective. In 60, they'd all be dead. Sarah made her choice, rising from the mud like death itself. Through her thermal scope, the world narrowed to the essential. Target, wind, distance, solution. The first Volkov sniper was 787 meters out, partially concealed behind a fallen tree. She controlled her breathing, heart rate dropping to that familiar rhythm where time seemed to stop. The rifle bucked against her shoulder, the suppressor reducing the sound to a harsh cough. Downrange, the Volkov sniper's head exploded in a shower of blood and bone. 1 down. She was already cycling the bolt, ejecting the spent casing and chambering a fresh round. The second target was 834 meters away, elevated in a tree stand. The second shot took him center mass, the heavy .338 Lapua Magnum round, punching through his body armor like tissue paper. "That's impossible," Wilson's voice now high with shock. "Those ranges..." The third sniper made the mistake of moving, trying to relocate. Motion was death in a sniper duel. 952 meters, moving left to right at approximately 3 meters per second. She led him perfectly, the round catching him mid-stride, and spinning him into the undergrowth. Two more targets. They'd figured out her general direction now, trying to bracket her position with fire. Rounds cracked overhead, but they were shooting at shadows. She'd already displaced 20 meters right, finding a new angle. The fourth shot was the hardest, 130 meters through dense foliage. She had to thread the round through a gap in the trees no bigger than a dinner plate. The Volkov sniper was disciplined, exposing only what he had to. He shifted slightly to get a better angle on the seals, exposing 3 inches of his shoulder. 3 inches was all she needed. The fifth sniper tried to run. Fatal error. At 900 meters, a running man might as well be standing still. The round caught him between the shoulder blades, dropping him face first into the jungle floor. 5 shots, 5 kills, elapsed time, 43 seconds. The jungle fell silent except for the ringing in her ears and Reynolds' frantic calls over the radio. Sarah rose from her position, slung the rifle across her back, and stepped out of the undergrowth 30 meters behind the SEAL position. Reynolds spun, his weapon coming up before recognition dawned. His face went through a series of expressions: shock, disbelief, anger, confusion, finally settling on something like fear. Collins? His voice cracked slightly. What? How? She walked forward slowly, non-threatening, though she kept the rifle visible. Ghost Hunter, intelligence support activity, she said calmly, producing her real identification. Call sign Shadow 9. And before you ask, yes, I've been operational this entire time. Reynolds' face flushed red. You're a spy? You've been spying on us? I've been hunting the mole who sold out 12 CIA officers, including my fiancé. She let that sink in. Every humiliation you put me through, every time you locked me in a container or pushed me in the mud, I was gathering intelligence. And you know what? You made it easy. You were so convinced I was weak that you never noticed I was documenting everything. That's impossible, Thompson muttered. The shots, those ranges, 787 meters, 834, 952, 130, 900 flat. Want me to show you the bodies? She asked coldly. Though I should warn you, 338 Lapua doesn't leave much to identify. Ramirez stepped forward, his expression unreadable. You're the one they whisper about. The ghost that hunts other ghosts. How many? Reynolds' question came out strangled. She met his eyes steadily. Confirmed, 117. Probable, add another 30. The number hit them like a physical blow. Most snipers went their entire careers with fewer than 20 confirmed kills. She just admitted to being one of the deadliest precision shooters in American military history. Why? Thompson finally found his voice. Why pretend? Because I needed to get close to Bradford. Because someone in our command structure sold out 12 good people for money. Her voice hardened. Because my fiancé is rotting in a Volkov prison while the traitor walks free. Reynolds stepped forward aggressively. You made us look like fools. No. Her voice was ice. You did that yourselves. I just let you. He grabbed for her collar. The same move he'd used in the training room, but this time she didn't play victim. Her hand came up, catching his wrist and applying pressure to a nerve cluster that sent shooting pain up his arm. He dropped to one knee, gasping. 2 weeks, she said quietly. 2 weeks of your harassment, your bullying, your petty cruelties. I could have stopped you at any time, could have killed you in your sleep. Instead, I endured it all for the mission, for David, for the others who are depending on me. She released him and he scrambled backward, cradling his wrist. The power dynamic had shifted completely. We need to move, she said, shifting back to operational mode. Those Volkov shooters were the outer security. The main force will be coming to investigate. How do you know that? Wilson asked. Because I've been tracking them for 3 weeks, documenting their patterns, responses, communication protocols. You know all that stuff I was doing while you were pouring coffee on me and calling me princess. As they prepared to move out, Old Bill's voice crackled through her comm unit. Ghost Hunter, this is Overwatch. You've got company coming. Thermal shows multiple signatures converging on your position. ETA, 3 minutes. Copy Overwatch. We're moving. She turned to the SEALs. The compound where they're holding the CIA officers is 4 clicks north, heavily defended, but the shift change happens at 600. That's our window. Our window, Reynolds found his voice again. You expect us to trust you after I saved your lives? She cut him off. You don't have to trust me, but if you want to live through the next hour, you'll follow my lead. They moved through the jungle with Sarah in the lead, her knowledge of Volkov's patrol patterns keeping them one step ahead of the search teams. Reynolds limped behind her, his pride wounded more than his wrist. Thompson and Wilson flanked the wounded, their usual swagger replaced by wary respect. Contact left, Sarah whispered, dropping to one knee. The team froze. Through the undergrowth, they could hear voices speaking Russian. Wagner Patrol, she breathed. 6 men, standard formation. They'll pass 40 meters to our east if we hold. How can you possibly know that? Reynolds hissed. She didn't answer, just held up a closed fist for silence. The voices grew louder, then gradually faded as the Russians continued on their route, oblivious to their presence. They reached an observation point overlooking the compound as dawn began breaking through the canopy. Sarah pulled out equipment the SEALs hadn't noticed her carrying: a high-end spotting scope, range-finding binoculars, a tablet showing thermal imaging from a drone she'd apparently been operating remotely. 12 guards on the perimeter, she reported, studying the feeds. 2 in each tower, roving patrols every 15 minutes. The prisoners are in the northern building, basement level. I count 11 heat signatures. 11? Reynolds repeated. You said 12 officers were taken. Her jaw tightened. I know what I said. Old Bill's voice came through her comm. Ghost Hunter, I've got confirmation. Volkov moved 1 prisoner 3 days ago. Intelligence suggests it's Mitchell. Sarah's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes did. We proceed with the rescue. The 11 first, then we find David. She laid out the plan on the damp earth, using a stick to draw a tactical diagram. Thompson, Wilson, you'll create a diversion here, south side. Small explosion, enough to draw attention. Reynolds, Ramirez, you're with me. We infiltrate during the distraction, secure the prisoners, exfiltrate through this drainage tunnel. And Bradford? Reynolds asked. We deal with him when we get back to base. She checked her watch. We move in 20 minutes. Questions? There were none. The SEALs might not like her, might not trust her fully yet, but they recognized expertise when they saw it. As they prepared, Ramirez approached her. I've got something for you, he said quietly, handing her a satellite phone. Picked it up from comm tent before we left. Might be useful. She took it with a nod of thanks, but something in his manner felt off. She tucked the phone away, making a mental note to examine it later. Old Bill's voice came through her comm again. Ghost Hunter, be advised. I'm seeing some unusual activity at the base. Bradford's making calls, destroying documents. Something's happening. Copy that. Maintain surveillance. She turned to the team. Time to move. The operation unfolded with precision. Thompson and Wilson's diversion drew most of the guards to the south side of the compound. Sarah led Reynolds and Ramirez through a blind spot in the perimeter security, using bolt cutters to create an entry point in the fence. Inside the compound, they moved from shadow to shadow, timing their movements to the guard patterns Sarah had memorized. A sentry rounded a corner directly into their path. Before he could react, her knife was in his throat, her other hand catching his rifle before it could clatter to the ground. She lowered the body silently, dragging it into darkness. They reached the northern building, bypassing an electronic lock with tools pulled from Sarah's vest. The door opened silently, revealing a stairwell leading down into darkness. She switched to night vision, descending into the basement where America's captured intelligence officers waited. The first cell held two officers, both showing signs of torture, but alive. She picked the lock with practiced ease, pressing a finger to her lips when they started to speak. Cell by cell, she freed them, gathering the group in the corridor. 11 faces looked at her with a mixture of hope and confusion. "Where's David Mitchell?" she whispered to the senior officer, a gray-haired man with deep circles under his eyes. "They moved him 3 days ago," the man replied. "Said someone special wanted to meet him." Her heart sank, but she pushed the emotion aside. "Get these people out first, find David later." She led them back up the stairs, checking the entrance. Dawn was fully breaking now, shift change approaching. Ghost Hunter to Overwatch, 11 packages secured, moving to extraction point. Old Bill's voice came back immediately. "Copy that. Thermal shows the diversion worked. Most hostiles still at Southside. You've got a clear path to the drainage tunnel." They moved the prisoners out quickly, hustling them through the fence opening and toward the extraction point. Behind them, alarms began to sound as guards realized something was wrong. They had almost reached the tree line when Ramirez suddenly grabbed the senior CIA officer, pressing a pistol to his head. "Nobody move," he said calmly. Sarah froze, weapon halfway up. "Ramirez?" "Sorry, Ghost Hunter." He smiled thinly. "But Volkov pays better than Uncle Sam." Reynolds looked stunned. "Diego, what are you doing?" "My job." He kept the gun steady. "Did you really think it was Bradford? Too obvious. He's been hunting Volkov for years." "You sold out David and the others," Sarah said, the pieces falling into place. "You've been working for Volkov all along." "Smart girl. Now drop your weapons or this man dies." Sarah calculated angles, distances, probabilities. At this range, even she couldn't guarantee the hostage's safety. "Okay," she said, slowly lowering her rifle. "Let's talk about this." "Nothing to talk about. Volkov wants you alive. Ghost Hunter's daughter. What a prize." Her eyes narrowed. "How did you know?" "Your father killed mine. Nicaragua, 1987. I've been waiting a long time for this." The revelation hit like a physical blow. The son of a Sandinista commander, raised to seek revenge. It explains so much. The satellite phone, she realized. It's rigged to track me. Smart and pretty. Ramirez grinned. "No wonder Mitchell fell for you." A twig snapped in the forest behind him. Ramirez started to turn, but it was too late. The report of a rifle cracked through the morning air, and his head snapped sideways, a red mist blooming where his left eye had been. He collapsed, dead before he hit the ground. Old Bill emerged from the trees, rifle still at his shoulder. "Sorry for the delay. Had to get the right angle." "How did you know?" Sarah asked. "I didn't, but I've been in this game long enough to know there's always another layer to the onion." He nodded to the satellite phone on the ground. "And that thing was blinking funny." Reynolds stared at the old man. "You're with her?" "I'm with America, son. Same as her. Now let's get these people to safety before Volkov's main force shows up." Back at base, the aftermath unfolded rapidly. Bradford wasn't the traitor. He'd been running his own counter-operation against Volkov for years. The intelligence Sarah had gathered, combined with Old Bill's testimony and Ramirez's betrayal, painted a clear picture. "Volkov's been using Ramirez to feed information for years," Bradford explained during the debrief. "Small things at first, then escalating. The 12 CIA officers were his biggest coup." "And David?" Sarah asked. Bradford's expression was grim. "We intercepted a transmission after the rescue. Volkov has him at a warehouse in Bogota. He's using him as bait." "For me?" It wasn't a question. "Yes, he sent this." Bradford handed her a message. "Came in an hour ago." She read it silently. "Ghost Hunter's daughter." Your father took something from me in Nicaragua. Now I have something of yours. Warehouse 34B, Bogota Docks. Come alone. Volkov. It's a trap, Reynolds said unnecessarily. Of course it is. Sarah folded the message. But I'm still going. Not alone. Reynolds stepped forward. My team is going with you. She looked at him in surprise. Why? Because you saved our lives when you could have let us die. Because I was wrong about you. He straightened. Because it's the right thing to do. Thompson and Wilson nodded their agreement. I'm coming too, Old Bill said. I've got a debt to pay. Sarah looked at these men, the bullies who had tormented her, now offering to risk their lives for her mission. The old warrior who had recognized what she was and chosen to help rather than hinder. Okay, she said finally, but we do this my way. The warehouse district in Bogota was a maze of corrugated steel and concrete, the smell of fish and diesel heavy in the air. Warehouse 34B stood at the end of a poorly lit pier, its metal walls rusted from decades of sea spray. Sarah approached alone. As instructed, her steps echoing on the wooden planks. Behind her, invisible in the pre-dawn darkness, the SEALs moved into overwatch positions. Old Bill had found a perch atop a crane 400 meters away, his rifle trained on the warehouse entrance. The metal door stood open, yellow light spilling out like an invitation to hell. She entered slowly, rifle at ready, scanning corners and catwalks. The space opened into a killing floor. No cover, multiple elevated positions for shooters. Classic ambush setup. Ghost Hunter's daughter, a voice called from the shadows. Russian accent, cultured, amused. The legendary female sniper. I've studied your work. Artistic, really? Vladimir Volkov stepped into the light. 6'4", built like a fighter, scarred face that had seen too much violence and decided to embrace it. He wore tactical gear but no visible weapons, hands spread in mock welcome. Where's David? Straight to business. I admire that. He gestured to a door at the far end. Through there. But first we talk. About what? About how someone like you exists. Female snipers. Yes, Russia has history with this. But Americans, you hide them. Pretend they don't exist. Yet here you are, with more confirmed kills than any of my men. He began circling her slowly. Join me. Wagner Group pays better than CIA. No politics, just profit. Not interested. No? Even when your own country betrays you. Your father gave everything for America, and they disowned him, left him to die. Her finger twitched on the trigger guard. The answer's still no. He shrugged. Pity, then you'll die with your ideals intact. The attack came from multiple directions at once. Wagner operators materialized from concealed positions, weapons tracking toward her. But Sarah was already moving, diving behind a steel support beam as bullets sparked off concrete where she'd been standing. Her rifle spoke once, twice, 2 shooters down before they had fired 3 rounds. She rolled left, found new cover, eliminated a third who'd exposed himself trying to flank. The warehouse erupted in gunfire, but she was smoke again, impossible to pin down. Then Reynolds' voice in her earpiece, danger close, get low. She dropped flat as the skylights exploded inward, SEALs fast roping through the openings, catching the Wagner operators completely off guard. The warehouse became a 3-dimensional battlefield, Americans dropping among Russians like avenging angels. Volkov retreated toward the door he'd indicated, and Sarah pursued. She burst through to find another room, this one containing a single chair with a figure slumped in it. Her heart stopped. David, unconscious, beaten, but breathing. She started forward, then froze. Too easy, too perfect. Volkov stood beside him, pistol pressed to David's temple. Dropped the rifle. She calculated angles, distances, probabilities. At 30 feet with a hostage shield, even she couldn't guarantee David's safety. Slowly, she lowered the weapon. "Kick it away," he ordered. She complied, the rifle skittering across concrete. "You know what fascinated me most about your record?" Volkov continued conversationally. "Not the kills. Anyone can learn to shoot. It's the choices, the shots you didn't take, the times you let targets live because killing them would harm innocence. It's called humanity. Weakness." He shifted slightly, giving her a better angle deliberately. "But useful weakness. It makes you predictable." She saw it then, the trap within the trap. He wanted her to take the shot, had positioned himself to make it possible, which meant the door behind her exploded inward. She spun, drawing her sidearm in one fluid motion. Bradford stood there, rifle raised, triumph on his face. The real traitor had been hiding in plain sight all along. "Sorry, Collins," he said, "but Volkov and I have an arrangement." Time dilated, Bradford's finger tightening on the trigger, Volkov moving to execute David. Her pistol coming up, knowing she could only engage one target. Save David or save herself. No way to do both. A rifle shot cracked from outside. Old Bill firing through a window from his position on the crane. The round caught Bradford in the shoulder, spinning him but not dropping him. His rifle discharged, the round going wide. Sarah's pistol barked twice, both shots hitting Bradford's chest. He fell, surprise frozen on his face. She spun back to find Volkov had moved, using the distraction to clear his line of fire. His pistol tracked toward her, and she knew with crystal clarity she wouldn't be fast enough. The shot was impossibly loud in the enclosed space. Sarah felt the round pass her ear, so close she felt its heat. Behind her, a Wagner operator she hadn't seen collapsed, his weapon falling from dead fingers. Thompson stood in the doorway, smoke still rising from his rifle barrel. "Nobody touches Ghost Hunter on my watch." Volkov used the moment to lunge at Sarah, a knife appearing in his hand. She blocked, but he was stronger, forcing her back against the wall. The knife inched toward her throat. "Your father took everything from me," he hissed. "My command, my reputation, my future. Now I take everything from you." "You talk too much," she gasped, then drove her knee into his groin. As he doubled over, she brought her elbow down on the back of his neck, sending him to his knees. She picked up his fallen knife, standing over him as he knelt, gasping. "My father always said you were sloppy, emotional. That's why he beat you every time." "He didn't beat me in the end." Volkov spat blood. "Ask him yourself, if you can find what's left of him." Her eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" "Your father," Volkov laughed, blood staining his teeth. "Ghost Hunter didn't die in that explosion in '95. He survived. Last I heard, he was in Pakistan, still hunting ghosts." The knife trembled in her hand. "You're lying." "Am I? Why not ask Bradford?" "He knew. That's why he wanted you eliminated. Two ghost hunters might start comparing notes." Sarah's world tilted on its axis. Her father alive, after all these years. Volkov saw his opening and lunged, a hidden pistol appearing in his hand. Sarah reacted on pure instinct, the knife finding his carotid artery. His final shot went wild, embedding itself in the concrete wall. As he fell, choking on his own blood, he grabbed her ankle. "Find him," he gasped. "He's waiting for you." The light faded from his eyes, his grip loosening in death. Sarah stood frozen until Reynolds and the others burst in. They secured the room, checking Bradford and Volkov for signs of life. Finding none. "David," she whispered, rushing to the chair. She cut his bonds, cradled his head as his eyes fluttered open. "Sarah?" His voice was barely audible. They said you'd come." "I'm here, love." She fought back tears. "I've got you." "Never doubted." He managed a weak smile. "Ghost Hunter never misses." The wedding was small, private, a few close friends, David's family, colleagues who knew how to keep secrets. Old Bill gave the bride away, resplendent in his dress uniform with all the medals and ribbons from a lifetime of service. During the reception, Reynolds approached, champagne in hand. "To the strongest person I know," he said, raising his glass. Sarah smiled. "You've come a long way from calling me Barbie. I was an arrogant ass. You taught me better." He glanced to where Thompson and Wilson were talking with David. "Taught all of us better. My team's never been stronger, more cohesive, and more respectful of female operators, I hope." "Absolutely," he became serious. "Any word on your father?" She shook her head. "Nothing concrete, but I'm looking. If you need help, I know where to find you." She squeezed his arm. "Thank you, Jack." Later, as the celebration wound down, Old Bill found her on the veranda, staring at the stars. "Happy?" he asked, easing his arthritic frame into a chair beside her. "Yes," she smiled, "but restless. The hunt never really ends for people like us." He handed her a manila envelope. "Which is why I brought you this wedding present." Inside was a grainy satellite photo of a compound in the mountains, coordinates written in the corner. Northern Pakistan. 3 weeks ago, a local asset reported seeing an American, older man, moves like a ghost, carries a custom Remington rifle. He eliminated a high-value Taliban target at 1,500 meters in a sandstorm. Sarah's breath caught. "That's impossible." "That's what they said about your 5 shots in Colombia." Old Bill smiled. "Runs in the family, I guess." She studied the photograph, heart racing. "When do we leave?" "Whenever you're ready, Ghost Hunter." He rose with a grunt. "The shadows are waiting." Inside, David appeared in the doorway, watching them with knowing eyes. "Another mission?" Sarah nodded. "The most important one yet." "How long?" 3 days, maybe 4. He crossed to her, taking her hands in his. "I'll keep the porch light on." "Always do." She kissed him gently, then turned back to the stars, to the endless night where ghosts and shadows played their deadly games. Old Bill looked up at those same stars, feeling the weight of years and secrets. "Your father would be proud," he said softly. "He'll tell me himself," Sarah replied, "when I find him." In the darkness beyond the wedding lights, beyond the safety of celebration, the hunt continued. For some, it never truly ended. The Ghost Hunter legacy lived on, passing from father to daughter, from old warrior to new. And somewhere in the mountains of Pakistan, a shadow waited, watching, ready for the reunion that had been decades in the making, ready to complete the circle, ready to finally come home